When Zachary Beaver came to town, Chapter 15. Dad invites Reverend Newton into the living room. They start down the hall, but my feet stayed glued to the floor. "Tobias," Dad says, glancing back, "you have company." I shuffle to the living room, wondering how long Miss Murdy May waited before calling the preacher. She probably picked up the phone as soon as I stepped off her porch. Reverend Newton settles into Mom's plump chair, plopping the Bible into his lap. I chose the straight chair on the far side of the room. Dad remains standing. "Reverend Newton, would you like a cup of coffee?" The Reverend pushes at his bifocals. His heavy cheeks sag down into his jowls, giving him a bulldog look. "Is it already made?" "No, but I'd be happy to make a fresh pot." "Well, if it would be no trouble." "No trouble at all," Dad starts out, and Reverend Newton adds, 2 spoons of sugar and a tiny bit of milk." He holds up his fingers to show the amount. "How about some cookies to go along with it?" Dad asks. Reverend Newton rubs his round stomach. "Woo, temptation. But I haven't eaten much all day. I might take 1 or 2, if it's no trouble." "No trouble," Dad repeats, walking toward the kitchen. He looks relieved to have a reason to go. I should warn the Reverend that Dad's cookies aren't the sugar kind. In fact, he doesn't use sugar at all. They're bland as soda crackers, and once you take a bite, you're chewing for eternity. Reverend Newton leans back. His elbows rest on the arms of the chair, and his chubby fingers lock together, forming a bridge. He studies me, and I study my shoes. Toby, Toby, Toby. I must confess, I'm not here on a howdy-do visit. I'm here on a mission from the Lord. He sighs, and his fingers tap his knuckles. "Is there anything you want to tell me, son?" I shake my head. "No, sir." He smiles. "Well, maybe I can make this a bit easier for you. I heard through the grapevine that you've been asking questions about the baptism. Am I correct?" "Well, yes, sir, but..." Reverend Newton holds up a hand, stopping my words. "No need to be ashamed. Every Christian goes through this some time of turmoil." He leans forward. "The Lord is knocking on your heart, Toby, and son, you better answer him." "But..." He raises his palm again. It might help if I tell you about my own testimony. You see, I wasn't always walking the walk." "You weren't?" No, indeed. I was a tax collector for the IRS. Looking back now, I kind of fancied myself as a modern-day Zacchaeus. I enjoyed the misery I placed on others. I loved that power. I was greedy for power." He shivers like he's trying to shake off his past and continues rattling on and on. I sink low into the chair. Reverend Newton is giving me my own personal sermon. I'm relieved when Dad appears with a mug of coffee and a plate of his cookies. Reverend Newton takes a sip, closes his eyes and smiles. "Ah, good coffee, Otto. By the way, heard from Opalina?" Dad picks up the plate. "Have a cookie." "Oh, don't mind if I do." He leans forward, peers over his bifocals, and examines every cookie before he selects the biggest one. "Heard about that fire. It's a shame. Grand Old Opry and all. Will they build a new one?" He waves the cookie with each word like a band conductor waving his baton. I feel my body heating up. "Fire?" Dad asks. "Yes, what a shame. We must add the good folks in Nashville to our prayer list, and we sure do miss Opalina's solos. That voice is a gift from God." Dad studies me, and I squirm, wishing I could vanish. "Getting back to your baptism, your mother is going to be proud of you, Toby." Reverend Newton takes a bite of the cookie and frowns. He chews and chews and chews. Finally, he swallows and chases it down with a swig of coffee. He winks at Dad. "These aren't Opalinas, are they, Otto? Good thing the Lord put woman on this earth." He sets down the cookie and turns his focus to me. I feel his eyes reach into mine. He is digging for my soul. "Would you like to come down this week when I give the altar call?" I can't stand it anymore. "Reverend Newton, my friend wants to be baptized, not me." Reverend Newton is quiet. He looks at me a long minute, then turns to Dad, who's leaning back in the recliner, feet up, hands clasped behind his neck. "Who is your friend, son?" "Well, I can't tell you. He doesn't even know I'm talking about him." Reverend Newton looks like I told him someone drove over his dog. Disappointed, he says, Well, tell your friend I'm willing to listen. I will. And I will be honored to baptize him. I'll tell him. The Reverend stands. Oh, Reverend Newton? He smiles, hopeful. Yes? What would my friend need to do to be baptized? He frowns and after a long pause says, Well, first, he should respond to our altar call. He can wait till the fourth stanza if he wants. He must confess he's a sinner. Then we'll schedule him in our baptistry. He'd be the 10th person to be baptized in our brand new baptistry. Reverend Newton says that as if Zachary would win big prize. Kind of like the time the IGA grocery store gave Earlene a color TV for being the 10,000th customer. Reverend Newton walks toward the door. Otto, thank you for the coffee and the cookies. Before leaving, he turns and shakes his finger at me. Toby, if the Lord is knocking, you better let him on in. Otto, hope to see you in church Sunday. Goodbye, Reverend, Dad says. The door closes and Dad stands before me, his arms crossed over his chest. I wonder what will be first, the baptism or the fire. Toby, what is this about a fire at the Grand Ole Opry? I shrug, doing my best to sound innocent. I have no idea. Somebody must have misunderstood me. Look how the baptism thing got all messed up. Speaking of which, I hope you haven't overstepped your boundaries as a friend. Someone's spiritual life is their own doings. He picked up the plate of cookies. The Reverend left before I could send him home with the rest of these. It would have been no trouble. No trouble at all. He winks at me and takes the plate into the kitchen. I can't believe Dad let me off so easy. Maybe he really believes me about the fire being gossip. But I don't have time to figure out why. I've got to get the pearls back. With any luck, I'll arrive at Scarlett's house before she returns and finds them. I race over on my bike and park outside the fence. But it's too late. Mrs. Stalling's car is parked in the driveway. I wonder if they went inside through the garage and didn't notice the package. Through the front window, I see Mrs. Stalling at the stove and Scarlett setting the table. The TV is on and Tara sits in front of it wearing Mickey Mouse ears. Quietly, I walk up the steps to the porch and open the screen door. The package is gone. I walk back down to the sidewalk and glance again through the window, trying to see if Scarlett is wearing them. She's not. Tara stands and jumps like a kangaroo over to the table. Hop, hop, hop. Shiny pearls flop against her chest. That little brat! That little sticky finger brat! There's got to be a way to get the pearls back. I could wait for her to come outside in the morning, and when she least expects it, a horn sounds from the street and I jump. Kate is behind the wheel and Cal is in the back of the pickup waving his arm. Come on! The ladybugs are here! For a second, the pearls vanished from my mind. I follow the truck on my bike to the train depot where Kate signs a paper for the ladybugs. Then the three of us load the crates into the truck. Each crate holds 2 sacks filled with ladybugs. There must be millions of them. They'll make a great sight tonight at the Ladybug Waltz. Seeing those crates stacked in the bed of the truck makes me think of Wayne. I look at Cal. He's all grins. My stomach knots up because I'm thinking about that letter and wondering what Cal is going to do when Wayne writes back. He's bound to mention it. While we load the crates, Cal asks, What did you find out about the baptism? I want to tell him the baptism has ruined my life. I'd have Mom's pearls in my hands right this minute if Reverend Newton hadn't visited me. Instead, I tell him what the Reverend said Zachary would need to do. Think he'll do it, I ask. Sure, Cal says, always the optimist. Enough is going on in my life to give me ulcers, but right now I put everything aside because this moment only comes once a year. I race the truck back home and win. After all, Kate is driving. In their front yard, Mrs. McKnight is trimming her roses. Ladybugs arrive? Yes, ma'am, we holler together. Cal, she says, you and Kate get washed up. Dinner is almost ready. And Kate, sweetheart, set the table. See you in an hour, Cal says as he runs into the house, Kate following him. I start to turn around, but Mrs. McKnight says, Toby. Yes, ma'am? I was thinking about your mom today. My stomach burns. I know you must miss her. Goodness, I miss her. She always seemed to have a song in her head and a smile on her face. I tuck my hands in my pockets and dig my heel into the grass. Takes a brave woman to go after her dreams these days. You should be proud of her. She wipes her forehead with the back of her hand, moving a few dark curls away from her face. Sometimes people don't feel complete until they go after their dreams. Even I have a few dreams of my own. You do? I say, wishing I hadn't sounded surprised. She laughs. I know I don't look like I would, but I do. It's nothing glamorous like your mom's. I've always wanted to travel around the southeastern part of the country, searching for old roses. Oh, I say, nodding like I understand the greatness of it, but of course I don't. She bends down and smells one of her perfect blooms. I'd love to tromp through old graveyards and around neighborhoods where some of those old roses grow. It would be exciting to discover a lost rose breed. She trims a faded bloom off the bush. Just then, a dark blue Chevrolet pulls up in front of the McKnight home, and I'm grateful that Mrs. McKnight's company will allow me to escape this conversation. But as I'm about to dash off, two men in army uniform, in officer uniforms, step out. Mrs. Knight glances their way, and her face pales. She returns to cutting the blooms. That would be nice, she says, her voice small and quivering. I look at the McKnight house. Kate passes by the window carrying a stack of plates, and I wonder if I should go get her. But my stomach is queasy, and my knees feel weak. The men step into the yard and walk toward us. Mrs. McKnight keeps trimming the roses, only now she's trimming the new blooms too. She is chopping away at the blooms and the stems, and with each step the men take toward her, the bush gets smaller. Her hands shake and her breathing becomes heavy, and she ignores the men who are now in front of us. Mrs. McKnight, one man says. She shakes her head and cuts. Thorns tear tiny scratches in her hands as the stems fall to the ground. Kate is staring out the window now, and I'm silently pleading for her to come and stand where I am standing. Mrs. McKnight, the man says, is your husband at home? You might want to have him with you. No, she says, not looking, just cutting away the bush. It is now so short she is bending over to reach it. No, she cries, falling to her knees. Not my Wayne, not my boy. She drops the clippers and her hands cover her face, muffling her cries as she rocks. Both men exchange concerned looks. One officer steps toward her, then squats beside her. We're sorry, ma'am. We truly are. Kate is outside, hurrying toward her mom, and I know that I have willed her there, because I don't know what to do. And God, I want to know what to do, but all I can think of is to run home, close my bedroom door, and shut out the rest of the world. Chapter 16. The day after the news comes, I get up at dawn and look out my window. Outside, Mr. McKnight is pulling their flag up the pole. With each yank of the rope, the flag climbs until it reaches the top. Then he lets it drop to half-mast. When he turns, I catch a glimpse of his face. His lips press tightly together and his thick eyebrows touch, forming a V in the middle of his forehead. Soon after, Dad, who has been drinking coffee on the porch, digs our flag out of the closet. By the time 8 rolls around, every flag on Ivy Street hangs from its flagpole. The ladybugs stay sealed in their crates, stacked in the McKnight's backyard. I worry that without water they'll die, but later Cal goes out back and walks over to the garden hose to the side of the house. I hold the shade away from the window and watch him. He slowly unravels the hose until it reaches the length of the yard, then drags it over to the crates. After turning on the water full blast, he aims the nozzle straight up. Not one drop hits the ladybugs. A few moments later, he throws down the hose and heads to the stack of crates. I hold my breath, hoping he'll spray the ladybugs, but he leaves the hose on the ground and the water runs onto the grass, disappearing. Then he kicks one of the crates, causing it to thump on the ground. He kicks it over and over again like a soccer ball. It's the first time I've ever seen him angry. He didn't even get mad when Kate punched him in the mouth. A moment later, he returns the crate to the stack, turns off the hose, and goes back inside. It's the day before the funeral. I haven't left my house in 3 days. Like Zachary, I watch the world from my window. Billy and Mr. McKnight leave for the cotton fields each morning, but Cal and Kate stay home with her mom. I haven't seen Mrs. McKnight since the day the men came. The wind has stripped away most of the petals on her roses, and the few blooms that remain are faded. It seems like our town is closed down these days leading up to the funeral. Old people still sit on their porches and talk, but their conversations aren't sprinkled with laughter anymore. Since the news, little kids haven't played outside, as if their moms are afraid someone might snatch them out of the yards and send them off to war. Every morning the phone rings on and off, but I don't answer it. This morning it rings 15 times. I'm afraid it's Cal, and I don't know what to say to him. What do you say when your best friend's brother dies? And what if Cal has found out about the letter I wrote Wayne? When the phone rings again, I yell out to no one, "Leave me alone!" and escape with a sack of food for Zachary. I place it on the trailer steps, knock, and hurry back home. At supper, Dad says, "Your mother called a few minutes ago. She tried to reach you this week, but you didn't answer." I don't say anything. I just concentrate on spreading the butter over my roll. But I'm relieved to know that it wasn't Cal calling. "She's concerned about you," Dad says. "She knows about Wayne." I look up. "Have you seen Cal?" he asks. "No." Dad's temples pulse and he stares at me like he doesn't know me. Finally, he looks down at his plate, shakes his head, and takes a bite of turnips. After dinner, he watches the news, and when it shows a war scene, he clicks off the TV. Then he puts on a Mozart album and reads Field and Stream. At 7, Dad is ready to go to the wake. He stands in front of me, dressed in a white shirt, black pants, and a striped tie older than dirt. "Aren't you going?" I shake my head again. Dad snaps his tongue against the roof of his mouth. "He was Cal's brother." "I know that." He starts toward the door, jiggling the keys in his hand. "Toby, do we need to talk about something?" "I just don't feel like going." His hand rests on the doorknob. "Sometimes we have to do the things we don't feel like doing." And with that, he leaves. Sitting in my dark room, I shuffle Mom's unopened letters like a deck of cards and listen to Dad's door close and the truck drive off. For the next few minutes, I hear car doors shutting and engines starting up and down the street. They're all going to the same place. The place I can't bear to go. I want to remember Wayne hitting baseballs at a Bucks game, eating a Bahama Mama snow cone in front of Willie Womack's stand, releasing the ladybugs in the middle of the cotton fields. The ladybugs. I rush downstairs and out of the house and sneak into the McKnight's backyard. I unwind the hose, screw on the spray nozzle, and adjust the water for a gentle flow. In the dark, with only the light from a cloud-filtered moon shining down on me, I wet down the ladybugs, thinking of Wayne and last year's ladybug waltz. Last summer, the ladybugs arrived in early July. That night, Wayne and the others stood out in the field with sacks above their heads, releasing the ladybugs. When the waltz was Wayne's idea. When he found out Dad liked classical music, Wayne asked him to pick out a song to play while the bugs took flight. Finding a new song for the past 3 years has become a tradition. But now when I think about it, I think it was Wayne's way of getting Dad involved because he knew Dad was shy. I had always imagined going with Cal's family to the airport to pick up Wayne when his tour ended. I imagined him walking off the plane, dressed in his uniform, hugging his mom and Kate, shaking all the guys' hands, including mine. I guess I even imagined him taking me aside later and asking, "It was you that wrote that letter, wasn't it, buddy?" It would be our secret, kind of like a secret between brothers. Only now it would never be. 1 foot into the house, I hear the phone ring, and without thinking, I pick it up. "Hello? Toby?" Mom's voice comes in as clear as she were calling from across the street. "Oh, thank goodness, Toby. I had a feeling you might be there. Are you okay?" She doesn't let me answer. "You're like me. You can't handle sad. Give us mad, give us happy, but don't tear our hearts out. Oh, critter, it's so good to hear you. Are you there?" I'm here. Now, your dad he's good at the sad things, but I always thought your dad teetered on being sad most days anyway. Some people are like that. Nothing has changed. She still rattles on and on. Critter, I'm thinking about you, honey. I know this is hard for you. I don't know what I would do if I lost you. They might as well dig another grave for me. I know she's expecting me to say something, but I just stretched the phone cord across the room. I recognize the tiny thumps, and I can almost see her tapping her long fingernails on a table. I want you to come and see me while there's still some summer left, okay? I don't say a word. You can ignore me all you want, Toby, but I know you want to see me almost as much as I want to see you. I know you do. A mother knows this about her kid. I count the soldiers on my dresser. I'm trying really hard here, Tobe. Can't you see that? I've got to go, I say quickly. I love you. I press down on the receiver and listen to the click cut off her words. The morning of Wayne's funeral, I put on my 6th grade graduation suit and tie. The sleeves are too short and the jacket fits tight across my back. I check myself in the mirror, and right now I'm not thinking about Wayne or Cal or anybody except Scarlett, and hoping she doesn't see me in this monkey suit. Dad stands in my doorway. You ready? I'll be there in a minute. Go ahead without me. He pauses. Cal will need you, Toby. His words are slow and deliberate, and I know he wants to add, you better be there. But he turns and leaves. As soon as I hear the front door shut, I walk to my dresser. Over 200 soldiers stand ready for battle. I knock one over, then another, and then another, one at a time until no soldiers are standing. A minute later, I look out from our front porch. The sky is gray, and lightning strikes through the clouds. A hearse from Landry's funeral home is parked outside the McKnights. The walk to the church should only take a few minutes, but I drag out my bike from the garage and hop on. And instead of turning right toward the church, I turn left, lean into the wind and ride. I jump sidewalk curbs and skim corners on the turns. My bike and I become one, and we don't stop until we are in the front of the Bolorama. A sign posted on the door reads, "Closed due to funeral." I stare at my reflection in the glass and watch Wiley Womack's golf cart pull up behind me. "Hey, Wiley," I say, turning to face him. Wiley's hair is smoothed back neatly in a ponytail, and he wears a wrinkled suit with a daisy tucked in his buttonhole. He holds out his hand, offering the space next to him. I shake my head. No thanks, Wiley. I'm heading that way in a minute." With a nod, Wiley takes off in the direction of the church, his folded wheelchair tucked in the back of the cart. Another streak of lightning branches across the sky, followed by thunder. I start to knock on the Bolorama's door, then notice it's already ajar. Inside the dark bowling alley, I call out, "Ferris?" No one answers. Suddenly it dawns on me a thief could be walking around, taking advantage of the all-town attended funeral. If he is, I don't want to be here. As I'm about to leave, I hear someone clearing his throat in the cafe. A few steps closer, I discover Ferris sitting at a table in front of the window with his blinds closed, his head bent like he's praying over a bottle of Jim Beam. "Ferris?" I move toward him. "Are you okay?" He looks up. His eyes are red and puffy, and a clip-on tie hangs from one corner of the collar of his unbuttoned shirt. "Hey, Toby? Shouldn't you be at the funeral?" "I'll get there. What's wrong?" He digs out a handkerchief from his pocket and blows his nose, sounding like a foghorn. "Got a nasty cold," he says. He pours himself another drink. "Don't ever start drinking, Toby. Next to money, it's the root of all evil." "Aren't you going to the funeral?" Sheriff shakes his head. "I'll pay my respects later. The McKnights will understand. They're good people." He looks up at me through puffy eyes. "You better get a move on, boy. You'll be late." I turn to leave, and Ferris says, "You know what they say is true." "What? Who says?" "What everybody in town says about me going yellow, that's me all right." At first, I don't know what the heck he's talking about, but then I figure he's referring to what happened to his leg and not serving in the Korean War. Maybe Wayne's death made Ferris remember, and I guess the Jim Beam helps him to forget. I creep backward out of the cafe and out of the Bolorama, across the street to Zachary's trailer. Zachary is looking out the window, his forehead pressed against the new glass. When I knock, he hollers, "Come in!" A foul odor nearly knocks me over as I enter. It smells rotten like a sewer. "What stinks?" Zachary's face turns red. He's sitting in his love seat looking at a National Geographic magazine. "Well, this town stinks." The smell is coming from inside the trailer, but I don't feel like arguing. "Don't you lock your door?" I kind of got out of the habit. "Have a seat." "You ought to lock your doors. Crooks live in small towns too." I yank off my suit coat, loosen my tie, and flop on the floor. "Who died?" Zachary asks. "Well, how do you know someone died?" "Well, for one thing, you're wearing a monkey suit, and the whole town's been quiet for the last 4 days. I've only had 2 knocks on the door, you and Kate. Neither one of you bothered to stay." I've been in such a fog the last few days, I forgot about the sheriff's plans for Zachary. He should have been long gone by now. Maybe Wayne's death postponed it. Zachary waits for me to answer. "Well, who died?" I tried to sound casual. A guy who was in Vietnam. He was..." I swallow. "He was really great." My eyes sting, and I bite down on my tongue. Zachary notices. He turns his head and studies the wall. Outside, the thunder rolls again. "It's weird here," he says. "You get lightning and thunder, but no rain." "We get rain." "Well, sometimes." "Yeah," Zachary says. "That war is bad stuff." I nod, swallowing the big lump in my throat. I want to change the subject. Right now, I'd even listen to his lies about going to Europe. I don't know what to say, so I blurt out, "If you talk to the minister, he'll baptize you." Zachary stares a hole in me. "I'm not getting baptized." "What's the big deal? Why are you so interested in my soul? I never took you as the religious type." I glance up at the bookshelf and see the albums. "Where else have you been?" He smiles, and I'm relieved I've picked something that he'll talk about for a while, so my mind might escape thoughts of Wayne's funeral. I can hardly smell the stink anymore. "Holland," he says. Have I told you about Holland?" "No." I lean my head against the wall and pretend to listen to him talk about Dutch windmills and tulips, but it's no use. I can't stop thinking about Cal and his family. And Wayne. Zachary sounds like the book reports we give in geography, naming capitals, agricultural products, and rivers. He's past Holland and moved on to Switzerland when we hear the bugle. He stops talking while Taps plays far off at the cemetery. A shiver runs through my body. When it's finished, Zachary says, "Wow, I've only heard that on TV." Later, someone knocks at the trailer door. "It's open," Zachary hollers, and I realize when he says that, he's grown sort of comfortable in Antler. The door opens and Cal walks in, hands in his pants pockets and tie loose around his neck. A sheen of sweat covers his face, which is redder than his hair. He stares at me like I've betrayed him. My chest tightens because I know that's exactly what I've done. "Pull up a seat," Zachary says, holding his hand out to the floor. "I was telling Cowboy about Switzerland." Cal's hand pops out of his pockets, and dollar bills are crammed in his fists. "Here!" He throws the money at me. Coins clank to the floor and join the $1 and $5 bills. "Here's your $46 I owe you. Now we're even." I don't move 1 inch. Zachary seems flustered, looking from me to Cal. "What's going on?" "You both deserve each other," Cal yells. His eyes flicker and tears make rivers down his cheeks. "You're both big, fat liars." He turns toward Zachary. "Switzerland? You've never been there. You've never been anywhere besides county fairs and one-ring circuses. You're in a freak show. You are a freak. He marches over to the curtain and yanks it back. The smell is stronger. See? Behind the curtain is a toilet, a regular-sized toilet with handles attached to the floor to help Zachary pull himself up. A shower stall is in the corner, with no door. A mop with a washcloth tied to it leans against the shower wall. And between the stall and toilet are books, lots and lots of books with titles like Switzerland and A Pictorial Guide to Holland and Seattle Sights. Zachary studies the floor, reminding me that that night in the back of the truck at the drive-in, he is trying to disappear. Cal turns toward me. And you. Everybody knows you're lying about your mom. She's not coming back. She's never, ever coming back. Like Wayne. He heads toward the door, turns and yells, "It stinks in here!" And he storms out of the trailer. But I don't follow. I sit there on the floor with $46 at my feet while my gut tears into a million pieces and sheets of rain pour from the sky.